We're switching gears now, with many employers now asking staff to return to their usual places of work. Employers are being advised to turn their mind to some of the less obvious consequences of this significant change for many people. Here to tell us more is Joydeep Hor from People, Culture and Strategies. Joydeep, great to have you in as always. Is this the case that employers are pushing people back to work, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think what's happened is that with a number of the restrictions now being lifted in relation to, for example, mask wearing, strong state governmental push to reinvigorate their CBD areas and a number of other things. A lot of employers are now in a position where they are able to and taking up the opportunity with a fair amount of gusto of returning people back, if not necessarily to full 5 days a week, but certainly pushing it to 3 to 4 days and doing a number of things that they have probably been planning for several months. I think one of the unfortunate things, though, for employers has been that just at a time when they were ready to do that and were intending to do that, we've had a combination of train strikes in Sydney, extraordinarily terrible weather and all of the catastrophes associated with that up the eastern seaboard, and while perhaps not so directly relevant in terms of what Australian employers do, the events of what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. So some big things that you probably just would not have needed coming out of, or hopefully coming out of the worst parts of the pandemic.
Joydeep, just looking around downstairs here when I go out to grab some lunch, it looks like it's the first day back at school. Lots of excitement amongst all the employees at the moment. From a workplace perspective, what are some of the things that companies need to put in place right now to go and make sure that that's going to be a seamless and safe transition?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think absolutely there will be this period, whether it's a couple of days or a couple of weeks, where it's almost like a new honeymoon period. There'll be a lot of reconnections, a lot of catching up, a lot of isn't it great to be back and developing and rekindling a lot of those relationships in a workplace context. That will last, and it's important that there is a level of celebration, and good employers are going to be on top of that and facilitating that, and not kind of micromanaging the extent to which people might be a little bit distracted in terms of the performance of their work, in the broader interests of welcoming them back and encouraging that rebuilding of relationships. But that will pass fairly quickly, and that's the point at which I think employees will probably start to reflect on a lot of things that they may have been thinking about over the last few months. We've talked in previous discussions around that itchy feet, the great resignation, all of those kinds of things. A lot of employers and managers may be of the mindset that let's just get back into things as though nothing has happened over the last however many months or even years. And they just need to be careful that what's been transpiring in the minds of employees may not necessarily accord with that. And there's probably a lot of changes that organisations and leadership within organisations have been planning, and there's probably been a lot of good debate and discussion in relation to that, but they haven't had the opportunity to consult with their workforce, talk to their people in person, and really get a sense of what those individual employees are feeling and thinking. And I think the diligent employers are going to really respect that a lot may have changed at an individual level for their staff, and they need to rebuild an employer-employee connection, and not take things for granted, and certainly not assume that everything is exactly as it was the last time people might have been working at their usual place of work.
Joydeep, are there any employers out there that are not asking their staff to come back, and why would that be, do you think?
Yeah, look, there certainly are. A number of organisations have formed the view that the working from home thing has worked well for them. They feel comfortable that people are doing what they need to be doing. They feel confident and satisfied that the level of collaboration and other things that they would otherwise or previously have not thought possible in a non-working from primary workplace situation have actually worked reasonably well. For a lot of organisations, it's also about rethinking their space requirements and looking to perhaps save on their rent bills. So there are a number of organisations who are not embracing and not rushing to bring people back to their usual place of work. But I would say, certainly from what I'm seeing, that is the minority of employers, and I think that even the ones who are not necessarily pushing it to happen in the month of March have plans to do so within the next 2 to 3 months.
Joydeep, let's get your crystal ball out. Let's think of 12 months ahead. How do you envision the workforce looking if this pandemic continues to play out with less and less cases?
Yeah, I think that there will be, well, the answer to that question, I think, is very much going to depend on the nature of the work and how busy particular organisations are going to be, and how much the work that they're going to do in the next 12 months replicates or differs from the work that they might have been doing pre-pandemic. I think if people are finding that they are largely doing the same types of things, whether it's for the same customers or for the same stakeholders, that they have been in the lead up to 2020, and nothing really has changed in terms of those external forces as they apply to a person's work, then I think a lot of those kinds of organisations will start to go back to the same kinds of practices. I don't believe that there's been a massive irrevocable change necessarily across all industries and all workplaces just because of what's transpired in the last 2 years. I think that is the case in respect of some industries and some organisations, and particularly I think what flows from that is those that are going to be finding that the way that they interact with their stakeholders is very different because of the way things may have changed in the last 2 years. They will find it more of a struggle to retain people. So they're the ones who are probably going to need to be more connected with their people. But it's going to be a very interesting 12 months, and fingers crossed for employers that hopefully they don't have too many other distractions that'll require them to, again, go back to the drawing board on this stuff.